the Sentinel Mindset.
CBC News has learned more about the security firm operating here outside the house. Have a look at that vehicle. Jungle Lion Security presents itself as Canada's #1 provider of security services. But no one answered our repeated calls, and the firm doesn't appear to have a website. We obtained Ontario Transportation Ministry records showing the license plate on the company's vehicle is registered to Aubrey D. Graham, better known as Drake. And the only person listed in the security firm's public profile is the man seen next to Drake in this video, his reported head of security, known to fans as Chubbs.
People that are in the rapper world, they are the most highest threat level of any people in the entertainment industry.
Leather glove, no sequin.
In a music video 4 years ago, Drake showed off the lavish interior of his Toronto mansion. He never hid the address, even putting that nickname, the Embassy, on full display outside. But at a public council meeting in 2019, an architecture firm hired by the rap star revealed Drake's security nightmare.
Everyone knows where he sleeps, where he eats, and that has really freaked him out, us out, and we need heavy security outside.
At that meeting, the city granted Drake permission to build extra tall fencing around his property. And this week it was just outside that police say a suspect drove up and shot a security guard.
He was standing outside of the gates in front of the residence when the shooting occurred.
Well, good morning, everyone. Today we are joined by 4 guests from the Security Guard Association of Ontario. We have Paul Carson, who is VP of Regal and also the chair. We have with us Chris Fernandez, who is former Deputy Chief of Durham Regional Police, and he is the Vice Chair. We have Luciano Cedrone, who is with Traves, Director of Security and also the spokesperson, followed by Stephen Somerville, President of Stay Safe, and also Director of Training. Welcome to the show. Gentlemen, welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Constantine.
So we just saw a video right now of an incident that just recently occurred. Let's just open up the floor. What are your thoughts around this?
Well, if I may, I'd like to jump into that pool quickly.
Absolutely.
We have again another occurrence with a security guard providing security provision in Ontario who is now shot. And what we need to take a look at, and without getting into any specific incident, we're looking at this most recent occurrence at the residence of Drake, world-renowned rap artist, is the allegations and concerns within the community that there could possibly be a rapper war, if you want to label it as that, certainly between Lamar, based out of LA, and Drake. So if that is factually correct, what we need to look at were security, and this is the focus of my concerns here today, where security provided appropriate information, appropriate intelligence in terms of risks, in terms of what they were doing for that particular tour of duty, if you will. And with that, assuming, and I'd say assuming that the security officer who was shot, was he licensed, was he trained, and was he given equipment, reasonable equipment to keep him safe, i.e. a bulletproof vest? That would be my opening segue.
Okay. Let's open up the floor to some more thoughts on this.
My comment is self-committed. Drake has brought this view to his home, to his place of residence, his neighbors, everybody, and now he claims that he's concerned about security, but he's told everybody where he lives. Then we have the opening up of a security organization. Again, to Steve's point, no idea whether there's training, no idea whether they were offered vests, no idea whether there was any intelligence provided to anybody related to what was going on with Kendrick Lamar and Drake. So interesting that we find ourselves in this position again, weeks after having our initial podcast, that we're now talking about some other incident that's occurred. That's a serious incident, my view.
Okay. Just for me, it's alarming, and I think Paul spoke about that. The security industry is in crisis. It has been for a while, for many years, prior to Michael Ferdinand and prior to this incident. So, this association got together, different backgrounds, different lenses, different experiences, but all focused on making things better for the men and women that work in this industry. And, being a retired police officer, now 5 years. I don't have the experience of Paul and Luciano in the security industry, but been attached to security for many, many years and have a lot of friends that have been directors of security. Nothing's changed in such a long time, and it's we've passed that crisis point, and it's time for change.
Well, just on that point, if I may, Chris and I were both at times served with the Toronto Police Service back in the day, and there was a time when actually after a short period of time left policing, I worked with Chris at a large-scale musical event. And the first thing I spoke to Chris was, because he was a supervisory officer at the time, was ensuring reasonable level of safety for all the patrons, the guests, the staff, of course the talent. And most importantly, the reason, the rationale behind police intervention presence and to raise the bar of safety. We spoke about that, and candidly, Chris gave some extremely insightful commentary and ensures to make that event safer, and it was pulled off without a hitch. But we're going back here to a situation where I'm always talking about conscious incompetence. You don't know what you don't know. And if security were not provided any form of information with respect to their own personal safety, I see there being liability and exposure to liability. And I believe that the ministry would certainly need to take a very hard view in terms as to what the security provision was being provided to this guard at the time. And what concerns or considerations were given in terms of their safety with respect to being able to remove themselves from a potentially risky situation.
You want to chime in, Luch?
Well, I'll just chime in with my 2 cents. Yeah, absolutely. I think, for me, I think we're still early days. There's still a lot of information out there that's yet to be confirmed. But it's emblematic of the industry that a company or a guy like Drake, he needs security, but are the loopholes or the requirements in place, are they substantial enough or rigorous enough that when somebody sets up a company, they've actually got all the training that we're talking about, that they've got the security professionalism, the support, the required certifications? Like, we don't know anything about this company. And, when you dig into a little, it sounds like it's 2 or 3 people. And that is all too common in our industry. And, when I first came down here, we had small providers at some of our buildings. We got rid of them all because you can't run a proper security program with 3, 4 people who just stand at a door. We've gone beyond those.
Okay, so that's good. So right now, the protocol with the ministry for someone to get their security license, right now, it seems like anyone can get it, right? To get your agency license, I believe it's $700 to get your security agency license. If you want private investigator, added to that, add another $700 on there. And really all that is required is that, directors that are listed on the agency license just have to submit their information. Correct. I don't know what the extent of the background checks are being completed, but you said many agencies are just able to get their licensing, right? Yeah. Should that standard change? Should there be a different standard for someone getting an agency license?
So we have written to the ministry recently, indicating our position is yes. The need for change in the business entity licensing group needs to change, and what we've proffered to the ministry, and the ministry that we're talking about here, because we keep talking about the ministries and it sort of gets convoluted. So when Steve was talking about, and I'll just segue for a second, when Steve was talking about the ministry looking at different standards, the training, the intelligence provided, all that, I believe, Steve, and correct me, you're talking about the Ministry of Labor while they're doing their investigation, or are you talking about the Ministry of the Attorney General or the Solicitor Generals?
Actually, both.
Okay. So that's for clarity. But from a positionary perspective for the SGAO, we believe that 10 years worth of business acumen is reasonable to say, okay, you've been in this business long enough. You understand the legislation, the regulations, the requirements of this, and presumably you're in this for the betterment of the industry. And we haven't received a response back from the ministry as of yet. It's still, to Luch's point, early days, and we hope to hear something back from them, whether it's positive or negative. We expect a reply. I'm sure that they will. And we've even given them a proviso to the 10-year mark, which is a 10-year benchmark, which would be 6 years of security experience plus a bachelor of whatever from an accredited university within Canada. There are organizations out there right now that aren't even on our soil, and they're operating like they are on our soil, and they are not on our soil. There are organizations that do all of the RFP response, all of that stuff from foreign shores, and they have handlers within the country that then provide that information to prospective clients. So it's out of control. I feel it's out of control. I think that the ministry themselves, and I don't want to speak for them, I believe that they see that it's taken a very negative turn as of late.
When you're reaching out to them, right, and you've done several times.
Several.
Are you getting a response?
Yes, we always get a response in some which way, shape, or form. Catherine is very good at getting back to us. And again, I can't say it enough. She's trying. I just, the wheels of change within this particular ministry are very, very slow, and I don't know what the reason is behind the slowness, but it's pervasive, and it's not in keeping with what is going on out there on the street level. But yes, they do get back to us. Not always positively, but they do get back.
It seems to me that even though they're getting back to you, they may not be giving you back with solutions, right?
So typically, we want to offer solutions in our letters to them, saying, here's what we know, here's what our acumen is, here's what our suggested course of action should be. And we get back letters, you can see that they've been selectively crafted in terms of their response to things. One of the bigger issues for the ministry is the opening of the legislation, opening back up of the legislation to make a correction or an addition. They tell us all the time that it's very arduous. I haven't been told how arduous, just, it's very arduous. It's a task that they don't want to do. But they don't seem to have any issues doing it when it behooves them to make the change, right? But with us, it's incredibly arduous. So I don't understand what the dichotomy is here, right?
And excellent point. I wish to point out also in a public forum, when an entity or a group provides recommendations or options, it would be a similar process in our community or culture for the coroner's inquest, where you review death. And there you get a nonpartisan review under the Coroner's Act to be able to review the circumstances leading up to that person's death. And you rule whether it was homicide or it was accidental. And with that, a competent jury, would be in a position to make recommendations to community. That would be extremely viable process, fruitful process. And
guys, I don't want to steal our time here, but that is a great point. What we found is that for Michael Ferdinand, the Ministry of Labor has abdicated their responsibilities related to investigation. They're not going to investigate it because the police are investigating it. And I feel that that's just unconscionable. So what I've done, or what we've done as a organization, is we've looked deeper. We went through the FOI process with both the ministry and WSIB. We got information related to those subcategories that we had asked for, and now we're starting to dig. And we just about 4.5 weeks ago put out a further FOI for information related to the murder of Mario Ruffalo, the security guard that was killed in Guelph. We see similarities in clientele. We see a very quick prosecution of this person. Mario was killed in January. The defendant at the time was declared not criminally responsible in September of that same year. I mean, that's blisteringly fast, right? And one of the reasons why we looked at the Mario case was because the police didn't make notification to the Ministry of Labor. Normally, the process would be, well, okay, there's a uniformed security guard there. The Ministry of Labor needs to be notified. Ministry of Labor always gives the same direction. Hold the scene. We're on our way. The organization that employed this person was the one that made notification to the ministry. And when the ministry gave them direction to hold the scene, there was no scene. The scene had been dismantled already. So what investigation could they do? Right? And there are learnings from every one of these types of situations, teachable moments within every situation that are lost to our industry forever.
But without formulating a crime scene and maintaining it, that's contrary to policing protocols as I know it. Perhaps as Chris could comment to that in terms of what is seen such as a homicide, generally speaking, what a police provision would be in this province.
Yeah, absolutely. And just to add on what Paul's saying in regards to the ministry, from where I see it, things have been happening. That's been very alarming. I think the stakeholders need to get together, which includes the Solicitor General's office, security companies, clients, our association, whoever else wants to have a voice for this industry, and agree that we have a problem, and have a starting point of coming up with a strategic plan of what the issues are, and then recommendations of how do we address those issues and start implementing it. The act that was came in 2005. From what I understand, unless I'm corrected, there hasn't been many changes, substantial changes, enhancement to that act in 19 years. So, it needs to change when it comes to the training, the equipment, pay rates, the legislation, and we haven't got there. Maybe there's people in the background doing this, but I'm not aware of it, and we need to start.
I would just, for me, my perspective is, we've banged our heads against the wall when it comes to looking at leadership from, and we talked about this last time I was on your show, Constantine, about lack of leadership from the contractor side, the company side, unions, associations for the guards. They don't want to do anything. So to me, I think we've got to start putting some political pressure on them as well, which means casting a light on the industry. You look at places, I think of the tow truck industry and what a disaster that's been. The only time they started moving on that is when it started to become political and they started shooting each other. So we don't want to get to that end in our business. But I've met with some members of parliament, provincial parliament. The appetite is there. We're in initial discussions, and they're doing some of their own digging into what's going on with the ministry as well. But they were completely like, what do you mean that's going on? What do you mean guards have been shot? Like completely out to lunch. And I don't blame them for that, because I blame the industry. We go back to, we've done a poor job of marketing what our opportunities are, what our challenges are, and we've sort of accepted the fact that we're just mall cops. Like that's the perception out there, and we've accepted that.
We have the same voice as the Spotted Owl Society of Dwight, Ontario.
When I told them we got 130 to 150,000 security guards, I mean, you can imagine a politician's eyes light up when they say that.
That's the voting public.
Right? Let's put 150,000 guards on Queen's Park on the lawn and start demanding change. We'll get change, regardless of the arduous nature of opening up legislation.
Yeah. Would it be safe to say that this year there's been, or maybe you can say even if you want to cast a net, like the last 12 months, there's been an unusual amount of deaths with security than in general than ever before?
I think that the level of violence has certainly escalated, but I think that the uptick started based on the FOI information. You could see 2019, 2022, 2020 seemed to be a crescendo moment for the industry and for mental health and whatnot. The level of violence that visited the hospital sector, as an example, escalated quite dramatically. And that, there are reasons why that occurs. I mean, and the government, to their credit, they're trying. But like the World Wide Web, like luring legislation and whatnot, it took years. It took a lot of time to sort of implement those changes within the context of a regulation for the internet, so to speak. And there's been there's been a lot of time, there's been a lot of focus in on this industry, and things just need to change, and they need to change now. We can't wait another 18 months or a year for things to start changing.
Okay, so this is a good pause. So change is needed. 100%, we can all agree on that. Right now, if we can have the ear of the ministry to actually say, listen, we're listening right now. Okay, there's more deaths happening. Where do we start? Where do we start, guys?
Well, I'm going to leave this to the group. I think everybody has an opinion.
Yes.
I certainly have an opinion, and I'm not. I don't want to challenge the group. Say with my opinion first. So, Luch, give it a shot.
Comes to me. Yeah,
it always comes to you. You're right there. So.
Yeah. Well, legislation is the easy fix, sort of to point at it because it hasn't been changed in so many years. Let's start there. But I think we can start with more rigid standards. I mean, the requirements right now are so vague that anybody can sort of skirt them. And, oh, yeah, we do use of force. They read a book and they qualify for use of force. So the regulation could certainly use some help. Enforcement's another issue. I think she had like 4 or 6 officers
Not
out there out of 150,000 guards.
Yeah,
Good luck, right? Like, what are you actually achieving with that? But I think another opportunity, and again, goes back to my discussions with some other individuals, we got to look, maybe we have to look at the problem differently and attack it from different angles. We talked about, and I talked to you about this, Paul, about the introduction of some legal legislation, maybe at the provincial level, because we are provincially driven in this province. So, for example, I'll say dangerous driving, right? You've got the criminal charge under the federal jurisdiction for serious offenses, dangerous driving, and then you've got careless driving at the provincial level when you talk about driving carelessly or dangerously on the road. I say, why don't we look at something like that for the guards? You assault somebody in uniform, there's a different charge for that. It may not have to be federal, it may not have to be indictable, but let's give them 2 years less a day. Let's give them $5,000 fine, and maybe they start thinking twice about stabbing a guard. Like that, to me, is another angle.
They actually announced today that anyone that I guess the penalties for driving under the influence and killing someone should have your license suspended for life,
revoked, right?
So, but right now we just had another person that just, as you said, security that was just killed right now. But again, it's just there's not enough movement happening there.
Right. So I like in those changes. Sorry, Chris, I know you're going to jump in, but I like in those changes too. So let's put a moratorium on assault weapons and a handgun. Wait a minute, we already did that, didn't we? Oh. And the bad guys are the guys that have the assault weapons and the handguns, not the good guys. So
okay, stop for a second. Should security? Do you think? I've heard this argument already come out sometimes. Should security be armed?
So my position is no.
Okay.
And the reason why is because we are not a government entity. We don't police. We enforce rules. So to give somebody that authority to take a life, I think that needs to be that threshold. There needs to be a different threshold.
Okay.
Put in place.
Okay.
I know that there are groups out there, and I speak to them all the time because they call me all the time and say we should all have guns, and that's a slippery slope to start in, right? And but there are tertiary pieces of equipment that are available to them that we may want to take a harder look at, right?
And the equipment I think Paul's alluding to is tasers, right? Very effective,
less
lethal option. When that was introduced into policing many years ago, it proved that it saved lives, right? And a taser could save someone else's life if deployed by a security guard, but it could also save their life, right? So they're allowed to carry batons and certain handcuffs, body armor. I think tasers could be added to that discussion, but also, body-worn cameras, because that's been proven over years to change someone's behavior that is in front of that camera when they are facing a police officer, when they're told you're on camera. It amends or changes behavior.
For sure,
people
it does.
behave better.
It's a great point.
That's fantastic. We've actually pushed many of our clients to use body cameras, but then they'll be like, no, we don't like the way it looks, right? And or the same thing is like, oh, we don't want anyone carrying handcuffs or batons.
So that's a great point, and I think that we need to be able to point the client in a different direction and say, listen, listen, dear client. We understand that your position would be that you don't want to see vests, and you don't want to see mechanical restraints, and you don't want to see batons, and you don't want to see tasers on duty belts and whatnot. But the fact remains that the risk level that that you're asking these guards to face require those. Those are non-negotiables for us.
So maybe then it's better that legislation is put into place, so it's not the client's choice.
So that's
right?
where we're going with that. So if we tell them subtly that that's, our position is this, that's one thing. If we direct them to the legislation that says we have absolutely no choice, please read here, that's an entirely different discussion. Okay. And I think that is probably something that should be done. I mean, Chris had said pay. We should all look at pay equity as well. I mean, what these guards do on a regular basis, on a daily basis, is, enforce rules, attend medical calls, provide first responder intervention. I mean, we have naloxone, we have AEDs, they're deployed all the time. We have saves all the time in relation to these types of events. And, they get paid, $1, minimum wage plus $1 or $2.
Okay.
And the aggravating factor to that is that, in many police jurisdictions, the police are very delayed, even answering 911 calls. I think Toronto, it was around 22 minutes, and it was down to about 18 minutes.
18.1 minutes as of May the 1st.
Yeah, so there's
fantastic.
But
that's a 3 5-minute rounds in a boxing ring.
Yeah.
But the police aren't, in many jurisdictions, they're not even coming.
Yeah.
And this poor security guard, or as we call them, first responders, are dealing with situations, CPR, like Paul's talking about, first aid, AED, arrests, putting out fires in some occasions when the fire department is on the way, and we're not supporting them, in all the things we've talked about so far.
Yeah, and we're not a government entity, so a lot of the stuff that if we make arrests, to Chris' point, I mean, if there's a protracted response, and we've had them, we've had people in custody up to 9 hours in some circumstances. We have to avail them of washrooms. We have to avail them of food. We have to avail them of just the comforts of life.
Call a lawyer.
Rights to counsel. All of those things that we may not be accustomed to doing because we never were asked to do it before, and somebody may make a mistake, right?
Okay, that's good. Luciano, you seemed bothered by all this.
Well, it's bringing back some PTSD, to be honest, with some previous roles I've had. But, as Paul said earlier, I think the sad truth is that most clients, unless they're forced to go down that road, they're not going to spend the money on body armor. They don't like the look. They don't want to spend the money. And so, you don't put a price on life. We put a price on life all the time in this business. And sadly, it's the cost of a body armor piece, $400, $500. Most of them are happy to have that person in a suit. And then, they're quick to report them if they don't say good morning or if they don't smile. But they don't ask about their training. When's the last time they were, refreshed or requalified? That doesn't even enter their vocabulary, right? And how many times I've gone down where we've had an incident and I'm reviewing the video on my computer, and somebody from the property management team will walk by and say, well, what's that? Well, that's our guard. What do you mean our guard? Yeah, that's our guard. It happened yesterday. They deal with that? Of course they deal with that. They deal with that all the time.
Every day.
And it just speaks to the ignorance, the level of ignorance or apathy towards what those guards do day in and day out there in the real world. Okay. So I think to Paul's point, we need to push it. Otherwise, it's not going to happen until, who knows how many people have to die.
Okay. One of the recommendations I know is obviously a training standard. Steve, you want to speak to that a little bit, just as this is your world of expertise?
Well, currently there is no training standard. There's no vetted, there's no codified training curriculum. Unlike policing, in order to be permitted to be able to perform policing duties, you must successfully pass an approved curriculum as adopted by the Solicitor General. That is not at all even close in the world of security provision. The only basic program you have just to acquire your license in no way, means, shape, or form will alert you to risks within the industry that you're working, nor give you reasonable steps in how to restrain, detain an individual, let alone de-escalate an individual, and if faced with violence, how to take reasonable steps to either manage your environmental awareness up to and including tactical disengagement. No such standard exists. I would highly recommend this province look at a codified training standard that's legislated in terms of mandatory, that the training program is there to meet those needs. Secondly is the training provider. Luch mentioned earlier, it's something that you either read a book or you saw something in YouTube or you saw a Kung Fu movie and you think this is going to be the basis of our training curriculum. The people providing the training program have no reasonable skills or background. In no way, shape, or form would they be ever considered subject matter expert. Secondly, they're not insured.
Yeah.
Their training program is not being underwritten. There's been no modicum of vetting to make certain that it's consistent. According to whose standard? It should be able to be identified as being somewhat court defensible and certainly evidence-based in that particular training. Training as we speak changes all the time at the Ontario Police College. Just 4 months ago, there's been 3 new additional days added on, tacked on to the current training program to meet the issues of addiction and mental health, including the verbiage that's provided. There's a brand new use of force model in this province. Most security companies or firms have never heard of it. And it's now called the Public Police Interactions Training Aid. The term use of force model is antiquated, it's outdated, it's been moved on. Yet, in my humble view, we see security officers, and that's or guards, if you will, constantly being faced with the same threats, the same sort of client base that police officers have, with a heck of a lot less training, heck of a lot less support, and no assurances that provide reasonable skills to keep them safe.
Well, and you know, with assaults and whatnot, I mean, the vast majority of assaults are underreported in the security industry. Vastly underreported, and that's because you know, we see the whatever service is attending to that call talking to security guards out of laying informations, right? That's, you know, that's their bread and butter. That's what they do. But they're cognizant of the fact that the court systems are choked. They're cognizant of the fact that, you know, I can't, if this guy's a bail ticket, I'm going to be sitting at a desk for a month of Sundays, getting this stuff all situated for the Crown brief. So I don't want to do that. And you know, what's going to happen anyway, right? There's a level of apathy that's occurring within this industry, but it's also prevalent throughout law enforcement, throughout the court systems, and that's a bigger discussion. I mean, but from our industry, we want to take care of the kids, and I say that I say that as a father taking care of the kids. I don't want anybody going out into this business not understanding the risks involved in working in this business. I didn't have that benefit when I started, and you know, I got into some very serious situations and managed to survive them, but for the grace of God, I managed to survive them. And these kids today don't have that benefit. They don't have the ability to make these determinations in split seconds because bad guys are bringing knives and guns to fights.
I just want to add, like, to say that they should just observe and report, which just drives me freaking crazy.
Yeah.
The whole concept of security is to provide security, not to walk away. So by acknowledging that they shouldn't and they couldn't, and I get why they want to do it, like, don't engage, you don't want to get hurt. But by definition, you're undermining the purpose of the job.
And to that argument, to that point, when security is on site, they typically get named in every lawsuit as well. We're not an insurer. We're not here to ensure that things don't happen. We're here to respond. But because the Trial Lawyers Association of Ontario deems our pockets deep enough to absorb
And
this.
the allegations would be that the security guard failed to meet the
Failed to
requirements
do whatever,
of
right?
the duty of care component to the
Right,
occupier liability.
right. But I mean, if those duties of care are unreasonable or unattainable, they're not there to argue that. And the security companies that are not knowledgeable, based on no business acumen to begin with,
Correct.
are caught, right? So they don't know what they don't know either.
That's correct.
And the other side of that is for the security guard that's not properly trained or not trained at all or not given the right tools and equipment or not trained on those tools and equipment, they get themselves in trouble sometimes when there's an escalated violent engagement. They get charged by the police for assault. You know, Steve knows criminal code, use as much force as necessary. Many security guards don't really know what that means,
we
and they're
live in a
just
world.
but they're surviving.
That's
They're
right.
just trying to survive.
Exactly. And we live in a world where we're forming policing policies, procedures, and the enforcement of those. How many security firms are you guys aware of that have no such thing as a use of force policy and no internal training?
Listen,
And
I
they
mean,
go after major contracts. And
they
they're
do.
awarded.
They go after major contracts and they win them. I mean, Neptune Security is a perfect example, and you know the death of Neptune was fantastic for this industry because organizations like government organizations were using this organization to provide security, and they were paying guards under the table. I mean, these are all allegations, of course, because they haven't been proved in court, but we heard all of this stuff. How does an organization that is, and I'm talking about the government, how does a government organization hire an organization that is going to skirt the regulations that they have created or enacted to provide safety, to provide taxation, to provide, and they think that's okay.
Right. So you represent an agency. I represent an agency. And there's many, many agencies out there. We got to get a number, actually, just as they pop every day.
532.
Yeah. Is it 532?
Yeah.
Okay, look at that. Look at that. Okay, great.
Not that I know.
So,
but they're 532.
So while we wait for the Ministry, Solicitor General, to respond to this, while we wait, and it could be years, right? What can the agency do now, listening to this, to protect their people, to put things into place so they can minimize this liability?
So I think, I mean, from my perspective, it's train. But you have to account for that within your RFP response.
There'll be a return on investment.
There has to be a return on investment, and that's just the way all business works. I mean, if we look at, again, taking Neptune as an example, allegedly they did none of that. And what happened? It was a race to the bottom. They couldn't cover off their payroll, this, that, and the other thing. And then an organization in Quebec that they weren't paying basically called them out. Called the CBC, and the CBC did an investigation, and they're out of business within 5 months. What does they need to play? They need to play fairly in the sandbox with everybody, and we need to understand what the rules of engagement are from a regulatory perspective. We need to be policed. I mean, I don't have any issues with any regulatory body walking into our organization and looking to see if we're doing what we say we're doing. I have no issues with that. In fact, I would applaud them doing that.
And the person performing that audit process often is not familiar with the subject material. And I find the person who has the loudest opinion or opposition to what you're suggesting knows the least about the topic.
Yeah, that's true.
And Constantine, you mentioned earlier about educating the client. I think it comes back to a lot of that is, and Luciano knows this because he works for one of those clients, is it comes down to the RFP. A lot of decisions are made on the bottom dollar, right? Here's the bucket of money for security.
Yep.
Here's the bucket of money for janitorial services. So make it work. So, and that's where we come back to that pay rate. If you're paying, $16.75, $17 an hour, that's what you're going to get for your money, right? You get what you pay for. So it's that continuation. You talk about body-worn cameras, why it's important. For the clients, it's their bottom line, it's their revenue. So educate them about, if that client owns a mall, how they're going to lose business, how they lose revenue because of disorderly conduct in their property. If there's not proper, training, not proper guards that have the proper equipment, doing what they need to do to make sure that those incidents are.
We see it all the
lessened.
time. We had guards refusing to go into stairwells because we had the homeless occupying the stairwells, and we would say, you need to do this as part of your patrol. Well, there's only one of me, and I can't do that because I don't know. Okay, so we listened. We went back to the client. The client was, maybe that's why everything in our stairwells is being vandalized. The fire system is being attacked all the time. The lights and whatnot. So what they did was they put it all together, everything that cost them for that, and they said, okay, so you have this amount of money, this budget, to put a second person in there to assist the other. It's just how you look at it, right? If they've already gone through a loss or an event that is a serious event, like looking at Pickering again. Pickering was closed down for 2 days, right? For that event.
Not the hotel.
Not the hotel. Yeah, the system or the casino itself was basically locked down. For what does that work out to from a monetary perspective related to revenue for them, right? And then say, okay, we're gonna allocate 10% of that back to security because our response to whatever it was, the event we'll call it, didn't satisfy our client base, our clientele, didn't satisfy us, and was dangerous for the guards in their response, right? If people would just refocus that lens to Luch's point, they would see, or maybe people like myself, like Luch, like Chris, like Steve, get into conversations with these clients and say, listen, you can't look at that as a bottom line issue. It's a cost center in your budget, no question, but we can demonstrate that you can turn this into a cash center where people feel comfortable coming to your sites, right? You're turning that around. But I think we talked about this before, the way in which the RFP process operates. It's a race to the bottom, and I think we need to change the mentality of that as well. Yeah. And I've always advocated for taking the lowest bid and the highest bid and discarding them right away. And then you operate between the people that sort of sat in that middle ground, because you're going to have people thinking intelligently about, I don't want to be the lowest bidder, but maybe we do this or that. It breeds my mind has gone blank now, but I know it's shocking that I don't have anything to say, right? But it breeds that an ability for talent to rise to the top.
Let me ask you a question. Should there be a duty of care component for the client who chooses the lowest provider, whose provider then creates bodily harm?
Without question. Yeah. But in the case of the government and in case of crown corporations, they're statutorily immune. So
other than to public opinion.
Yeah, other than to public opinion. So they don't care. And their operators below them don't care because they're covered under the statutory immunity umbrella as well. So
there's no consequence.
There's no consequence for them doing that. And if you tell that to somebody that's intelligent, they will say, you are full of shit. I always get one swear word in these types of things, right? But you're full of shit. And when you explain that to them, they go, I didn't know that. I had no idea that could happen. So I'm just simply a number. Michael's family is going through that right now. They're going through that. Michael was a number. We've implored them through the SGAO to put in for money for a GoFundMe initiative, right? Crickets. Haven't heard a word from them. I'm sure that they're off pondering whatever they ponder, but to basically say thanks for the service. Sorry it didn't work out.
Well,
I'm incensed.
I would draw your attention and focus to what's gone on at some hospitals in Ontario, and I don't want to mention any hospitals, but South Lake Regional would be
not that you would mention
just
South Lake Regional.
Exactly. But if you look at such an incident where a number of it was pushed actually by the Ontario Nurses Association, how many clinicians were being violently hurt and security guards were being physically destroyed. Ontario Ministry came in and they actually laid criminal charges, 217 of the Criminal Code, for basically criminal negligence to the CEO, and they walked because the court would not pursue it. It became a very small monetary fine in terms of it, but you've got people who will never be able to return to a workplace for it. So the Ministry of Labour has the ability, the autonomy to lay charges and look at criminality associated to misconduct on failing to recognize reasonable standards and modicums of safety. But the court, again, has certainly, in my humble view, dropped the ball in terms of not making people an example. That's not the purpose of the court.
No.
But certainly showing to this community that this will not be.
These are all teachable moments, and we miss them every day. And it's to the detriment of the people that we employ that we miss these teachable moments. And it's the apathy within the legislative system that we miss these opportunities. And if we were diligent enough, if we were smart enough to say, okay, we understand we're not reaching nirvana anytime soon, but there are changes that could be made, should be made, because they are smart changes. Like, as an example, licensing. If we take away a 21-year-old's ability to get a business license in the security guarding industry, what do we remove from the investigative process part? So we remove their want to make money, however they choose to make money. Some groups do go to a cash system. They undermine the credibility of the industry when they do that. The clients say, we don't care. It was $50,000 less than the next bidder. Well, right? So that's very attractive to us. The clients need to be made aware that the potential of liability then exists with them, but we're not doing that. We're not doing that effectively. What we do in this industry is we sit in our groups, we drink our coffees, we talk about the magnificence of each other, and we bitch about everything that's going on, but we never get into change. I was at a best practices, and I swore I wasn't going to bring this up in this thing, but I was at a best practice. You were there, and I was pulled aside by somebody within the industry, and he said, "You know what, Paul? He says, I really, really, I like what you're doing. I like it, but your methods." I don't like. My methods? What are my methods? Well, you're out there. You're beating the grasses. You're causing people to talk. Those are, and I'm like,
how's that a bad thing?
How is that? That's exactly what I'm thinking.
One more coffee, you would name names.
Exactly. One more coffee, and I would name names.
Away from
But I'm just looking at this person thinking, you're the problem.
Yeah.
Right? And it's no deference to them. I do like that. I enjoy the person's company, but when it's put into those stark reminders or those sentences where you're like, you don't want us to do anything but what we're doing, and it ain't working, and you're just like, okay,
But
anyway.
To that point, Paul, somebody's got to be the pointy end of the stick, or that entity that pushes, right? Everything that Paul and we have done so far has been the pointy end of the stick, but has been respectful.
Yeah.
Right.
We haven't kicked the furniture over or whatnot. I think that
You've
when
been informative, you've not been or not being adversarial.
No, we don't want to be adversarial. We understand. We understood that right out of the gate that the unions may have an issue with this, right? Because they would just look at it as another union, a different form of union. We have no interest in collective bargaining with any guards or whatnot. We're here for the betterment and for the safety of these guards and to teach them what they don't know. If the unions are willing to do that, then pick up the phone and call us. We're happy to sit down and collaborate with you. Right. But I haven't gotten a phone call from them. I've gotten phone calls from lawyers, though. Mm-hmm. Right? So
lawyers, what, cease and desist?
Yeah, they've told us, we should be doing this, or this is how we should be operating, or you're just a pseudo union, right? Coming, and I'm like, I have no intentions. We have no intentions of representing guards from a collective agreement perspective. None. We're here to help both the ministry and the children that are being put out as cannon fodder.
No, listen, what you guys do is, and I want everyone listening here right now, you're doing this out of your own time.
Yeah.
You're not being paid to do this.
No.
Right? And that speaks as a testament to each individual in this room here right now, that there's a care here to see the industry change, including myself. I really want to see the industry change, but to me, I think it's going to be an uphill battle.
And I agree, and I think we've all come to that rationalization that people don't like change for just for the sake of it, right? They just don't like it. They like to sit in their status quo and collect their paychecks, and they have mortgages and baseball games and hockey games that they want to go to, and sitting down and thinking about the classification of security guards doesn't feel like a fun thing for them to be doing on a weekend, right?
Right.
We get it.
It's also the optics of compassion. I think we need to look at, and I'm going to be a little adversarial when I say this may be edited.
No.
Hard to believe. But here's the thing. We have a security officer, believed to be, suffered life-threatening injuries working at the residence of Drake. I have heard nothing, news release, from the management team or Drake himself speaking about the concerns of this young person that was working for him. We have his back. We will ensure that all of his needs and finances are cared for. The only concern I heard from Drake was complaining about the helicopter by CP24 over his residence. He was asking for more consideration to not fly over his residence.
And he's not there.
That's right.
So I think when we're having good people put their life or safety on the line and they're not being cared for or compensated, that also needs to be trained.
Yeah.
And I think the community needs to take a harsh look at the lack of empathy displayed by people that are benefiting on the efforts of others.
And that's perfectly said, Stephen. I don't think that's adversarial at all. I think that's common sense.
I think it's decency.
Right. But common sense isn't that common. I mean, you guys worked in policing. That should be your mantra. It should be tattooed somewhere on your body, right? All three of you, actually. I forgot about you. Sorry.
That's hurtful.
I know. Sorry, Luch. But that honestly, common sense isn't that common. And that applies to, ministries, governments, clients, actors that are doing these bad things. Common sense would tell you that getting out of your car and beating somebody to a pulp because they failed to, indicate a lane change,
or they honked at you,
would not, But again, it's not common, and security guards face this every day, and it's shocking to me that, and I assume the rest, it's shocking to as well. I mean, we've all sat and kibitzed about all of this ad nauseum. It's shocking to me that other people don't see that. And, I'm sorry that, they're and I'm going to be controversial now, their level of intelligence has passed their level of ignorance, right? So, or vice versa.
And certainly these individuals should not be in charge or be given the granted a license to operate a security company in the security provision of others.
Well, we started talking about it, and I think I took a hard left, but they're not they have no interest in training because it doesn't benefit their bottom lines. They pay these guards a lot of the time in cash. I mean, I can mention security company after security company that are up in that you know, they've been operating for a number of years and they're still doing it, and they all know who they are. They all know who they are, but the issue is we know who you are too. Right. And when the legislation changes, guess what? The actions of enforcement will come a knocking. Okay. Right? This is education right now. At this point, we are educating people about what the problem is, but at some point in time, this has to turn into action.
Absolutely, well said. Look, gentlemen, I want to thank you for your time today for putting this together. Because the SGAO, the Security Guard Association of Ontario, is actively growing, yes. Can we just do some shout outs for people if they want to join? Yes, Paul, I want to be part of this change. How do we join? So right now, you can join through LinkedIn. I've just put up the SGAO on Instagram as well, SGAO 23. They can go to Instagram, and we are just finalizing our website. As I said to you in our last podcast, we suffered a cyber attack on the first one. Not sure as to why. We had a lot of interest on it, but we did. So we're making this one as tough as we possibly can from a attack perspective, because we have people's credit card information and whatnot. We have that information, right? For them to join. So the SGAO, it's www.sgao.ca, and that website should be up shortly. Okay, amazing. Gentlemen, I want to thank you for your time, for coming down. And on our next show, which we'll be having more, we'll have a box of coffee so we can get more secrets. Well, I'm really looking forward to trying to stick another 3 or 4 people in here. That's right. Thanks, Constantine. We'll keep expanding. Thank you, Constantine. All right, guys. Thanks very much for coming down. Goodbye, everyone. Stay safe.
Thank you for joining me in today's podcast. This podcast was created for protectors in the fields of law enforcement, executive protection, security, and anyone looking to level up their mindset. If you are learning from this podcast and you're enjoying it, please subscribe to our YouTube channel at the Sentinel Mindset. That's a zero-cost way to support us. In addition, please subscribe to the podcast both on Spotify and Apple. And on both Spotify and Apple, you can leave us up to a 5-star review. If you have questions for me or comments about the podcast or guests you would like me to consider on the Sentinel Mindset, please post all comments on YouTube. I do read all the comments. Please also check out our sponsors, thearenatoronto.com. The Arena was created to help all those in the fields of law enforcement, security, and all that achieve their fitness goals. I want to thank our producer, Matthew Doyle, and creative support, Jaslene Singh, who help me with this podcast every week. We value your feedback and are here to support you. Tune into the Sentinel Mindset every week, where we look in the mirror to make real changes and explore what it takes to achieve greatness in your craft.
This podcast is brought to you by Executive Protection Lifestyle Canada. Make sure to drop by next week and don't forget to subscribe.